rift within. I've always been fascinated by the unknown, drawn to the enigma of the universe. As a young scientist working in a clandestine lab, I had access to technology most could only dream of. One day, I stumbled upon a discovery that would shatter the boundaries of reality and plunge me into a nightmarish realm of interdimensional terror. It began innocently enough, a typical day in the lab, running experiments on our state-of-the-art equipment. My colleagues were skeptical when I presented my idea of creating a portal to another dimension, but I was convinced it could be done. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, I worked tirelessly for weeks, perfecting the calculations, and adjusting the machinery. One fateful night, I activated the portal. A swirling vortex of shimmering energy emerged before me, revealing glimpses of a surreal, otherworldly landscape beyond. Fear mingled with excitement as I stepped closer, my heart racing with anticipation. A bone-chilling wind howled from the portal, and I hesitated, but my desire to explore this uncharted territory overcame my unease. I took a step forward and was immediately sucked into the rift. I emerged in a place beyond comprehension, a nightmarish dimension where physics defied explanation. The colors were alien, the landscape warped and twisted, and the air was filled with unsettling whispers that burrowed into my mind. As I ventured further into this nightmarish realm, I noticed grotesque, shadowy figures lurking just beyond my field of vision. They moved with unnatural grace, their limbs elongated and disjointed. Dread washed over me, but I couldn't turn back. I was trapped in this interdimensional nightmare. Days turned into an eternity as I struggled to survive in this surreal dimension. I could feel the boundary between my world and this one weakening, the horrors seeping through. Sleep was impossible, for the dreams were far worse than reality. The haunting whispers grew louder, and I could almost make out their sinister words, promising eternal torment and despair. I tried to communicate with these beings, but their language was incomprehensible, a maddening cacophony of alien sounds. My body began to wither, my mind unraveling as I teetered on the brink of madness. I knew I had to find a way back, to seal the portal and escape this nightmarish abyss. With every ounce of strength left in me, I retraced my steps, retracing my path through the warped landscape. The shadowy figures pursued, their twisted forms closing in. As I neared the portal, a surge of panic gripped me. I realized that sealing the rift would also mean sealing my fate within this dimension. But it was a sacrifice I had to make. With trembling hands, I activated the controls, and the portal began to collapse. The shadowy figures screeched in fury, their tormenting whispers rising to a deafening crescendo. Just as the rift closed, I was pulled back into my own dimension, collapsing onto the lab floor, my body frail and battered. My colleagues rushed to my side, but they could never understand the horrors I had witnessed. I had glimpsed the abyss between worlds, a place where the laws of reality had no meaning, and where interdimensional horrors waited to claim those who dared to tread into the unknown. And as I lay there, scarred by my harrowing experience, I knew that some doors should never be opened, and some questions should never be answered. The descent into Decay. Mia was walking home on a crisp autumn evening, the fading sun casting long shadows across the empty streets. The neighborhood was quiet, but that would soon change, and her life would be irrevocably altered. A lover of animals, Mia couldn't ignore the pitiful sight of a dog wandering alone, thin and wounded. Its fur was matted with blood, and its eyes held a desperate plea for help. She approached cautiously, her heart filled with sympathy. As she reached out to comfort the wounded creature, it lunged at her with a feral growl, teeth sinking into her forearm. Pain seared through her, and she screamed, desperately trying to pull away. A passerby heard her cries and rushed to her aid, using a makeshift weapon to fend off the rabid dog. Blood oozed from Mia's wound as she was rushed to the hospital, where they cleaned and stitched it up. The doctor assured her that it was a minor bite and prescribed antibiotics to prevent infection. She was sent home, relieved but shaken. Days passed, and Mia's relief turned to dread as her condition worsened. The bite site began to fester, and her arm throbbed with an agonizing pain. She developed a high fever, and her appetite dwindled. Her body grew weaker, and she was plagued by violent, fevered dreams. Her mind raced as she researched rabies symptoms. But what she experienced didn't match the textbook descriptions. Her skin took on a sickly pallor, and her veins seemed to stand out like dark rivers beneath the surface. She tried to hide her worsening condition from her family, but it was becoming impossible. One evening, Mia found herself wandering the streets, drawn by an insatiable hunger she couldn't control. She longed for flesh, for something raw and primal. Her body was betraying her, transforming into something she couldn't comprehend. Terrified and on the brink of madness, she sought out a doctor who could help. The journey took her to the outskirts of town, where she discovered a clandestine laboratory hidden in the woods. It was there that she learned the horrifying truth. The dog that had bitten her was an escaped experiment from the lab, a product of twisted genetic engineering. It carried a virus that was unlike anything the world had ever seen. A virus that was slowly transforming Mia into a monstrous abomination. As she confronted the scientists and military personnel responsible, chaos erupted. Shots were fired, and Mia was wounded but managed to escape. Her injuries did not affect her. In fact, she seemed to be growing stronger. With each passing day, she grew more grotesque, her body decaying as if she were a corpse. Her hunger for flesh became insatiable, and she could feel her humanity slipping away. It was a moonless night when Mia stumbled upon a group of unsuspecting campers in the woods. She couldn't control her urges any longer. The horror in their eyes mirrored the horror she felt within herself as she succumbed to her primal instincts. Now, Mia roams these woods, a monster in the shadows, a creature born of science and suffering. She can feel her humanity slipping away with each passing day, replaced by an insatiable hunger for flesh. There is no escape from this nightmare, no salvation. She is the embodiment of fear, a living, breathing horror, and there is no hope for her now. The abyss below. In the heart of a dense, uncharted forest, 4 friends set out on a daring adventure. Mark, Sarah, Mike, and Lisa were seasoned cave explorers, and they had heard rumors of a cave system unlike any other. A dark, gaping maw in the earth called to them like a siren's song. After a long day of hiking, they finally reached their destination, a foreboding cave entrance hidden behind towering trees. They made camp just outside, the flickering campfire casting long, eerie shadows on the cave's mouth. The next morning, with headlamps on and gear in hand, they ventured into the cave, excitement in their hearts and trepidation in their steps. They descended deeper and deeper, squeezing through narrow passages, awed by the subterranean wonders that unfolded before them. Hours turned into days, and soon, they realized they had ventured far beyond their planned route. Panic settled in as they realized they were hopelessly lost in the labyrinthine depths of the cave system. Hunger gnawed at them, and desperation began to set in. They knew they had to find a way out before their supplies ran out entirely. Mark, the most experienced among them, took the lead, guiding them through the winding tunnels. As they delved deeper into the abyss, their headlamps revealed strange, phosphorescent markings on the cave walls, symbols that seemed ancient and alien. Unease gnawed at them, but they pressed on, driven by the need to escape. That's when they stumbled upon it, a vast chamber unlike any they had seen before. The walls were covered in a glistening, sticky substance that caught the dim light of their headlamps. In the center of the chamber, they saw them, gigantic spider-like creatures, their bodies as big as cars, their legs reaching out with horrifying grace. The creatures sensed their presence and scuttled toward them, their multifaceted eyes gleaming with malevolence. Panic overtook the explorers as they tried to flee, but the creatures were too fast, too relentless. In a desperate bid for survival, Mark and Sarah fought back, using their equipment as makeshift weapons. Mike and Lisa, terrified beyond reason, tried to find an escape route, but the cave seemed to shift and change, trapping them within the chamber. The battle raged on, but the explorers were outnumbered and outmatched. One by one, they were ensnared in the creature's monstrous webs, their screams of terror echoing through the chamber. The creatures wasted no time, injecting their helpless prey with paralyzing venom. Mark and Sarah watched in helpless horror as their friends were cocooned in silk, their writhing bodies slowly coming to a halt. In their final moments of consciousness, Mark and Sarah realized the horrifying truth: the creatures were not only predators but also architects of a nightmarish trap. They were to be food for these ancient, unknown horrors. As the creatures closed in, Mark and Sarah joined their friends in a helpless embrace of silk and darkness, their fate sealed in the unforgiving depths of the cave. The cave's secrets remained hidden, its chamber of horrors concealed from the world above, as if guarding a malevolent secret from time immemorial.